Hello, I'm BrigantiaBlackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome to the daily forecast for Wednesday, December 25th, 2024. It is the 5th of Capricorn and it is the day of reindeer. It is also Present Day, commonly known as Christmas Day. But exchanging gifts at Yule is a long-standing pagan tradition. Some do choose to continue to do so on the 25th because it's culturally customary, whether families are religious or not, at least religious in the sense of the Christian world. It's still you have people who aren't religious or spiritual who celebrate Christmas and open presents on Christmas Day. You have pagans who still do it. You have atheists who still do it, for goodness sake. So this might be something that you choose to still continue to schedule on this day. Another thing you might do to celebrate the day is make a delicious lunch for everyone in your household. Whether you are still swamped with relatives or it's just your immediate family, whatever else that it is, make some yummy treats. Go outside if possible, snow or no snow. I was looking at an updated weather forecast for just the entire nation, and almost every single state is supposed to be substantially above normal temperatures. I don't think there was really much precipitation expected in the forecast, so it's going to be a very, very green Christmas. And while that's no good for sledding and all of the other things that we usually wish that we had at this time of year, it could be very good for going outside, taking nature walks, doing other things. So try to get some actual sunshine today. We have it. There'll be times in January and February, and indeed even March when we don't. So we should probably make use of this while we can. Okay, so that is little. Let's see, are we still okay? We are still recording. That little interruption was caused by Sophia, the Supreme. She is her mother's favorite kitten. She never does anything wrong ever, and never gets into trouble the way her other siblings do with their mother. And well, she is pretty adorable. But anyway, let's move on. Another thing we can do on this day is relax, read, and make use of your presence, especially if you got a fun craft project or something else of that kind, and enjoy it. And of course, honor your household deities for safeguarding the family. Then in our astrology, the sun is in Capricorn, of course. It's cardinal earth. It represents ambition. The moon is fourth quarter Scorpio, fixed water, which represents secrets. Mercury is in Sagittarius, mutable fire, which is to be opinionated. Venus is in Aquarius, fixed air, which is to be intellectual. Mars is retrograding in Leo, fixed fire, which is tempered action. Jupiter is retrograding in Gemini, mutable air, which is to broaden perspective. Saturn is in Pisces, mutable water, which represents nostalgia. Uranus is retrograding in Taurus, fixed earth, representing rebellion. Neptune is in Pisces, mutable water, which represents intuition. Pluto is in Aquarius, fixed air, which represents reformation. For our retrogrades, for Mars, reconsider what you really want. For Jupiter, connect with your true path. For Uranus, reconsider how you rebel. And for Chiron, restore the heroic spirit. Then on our moon, we are in that fourth quarter, so it's time for us to release stagnant energy. And the Scorpio moon theme is intensity and self-reckoning, which is a bit much for this particular day, but still be aware that energy is floating around. So keep in mind that the Sagittarian Mercury is overflowing with opinions, and the waning Scorpio moon is keeping its own counsel. So if it so happens that Great Aunt Petunia or anyone else in your family gifted you something that is, shall we say, outside of your aesthetic sensibilities, lean into the lunar Scorpio energy and be gracious. Keep anything that you don't like to yourself today, and remind the Mercury influence that it actually is the thought that counts. It is the love the present represents, not necessarily the present itself. So moving along, our tarot for today is the Magus. The Magus corresponds with the Magician and the traditional tarot. It's number one in the major arcana, which represents conscious awareness. Its keywords are the sight, as in the psychic senses, action, manifestation, everything that you would expect a magical person to be associated with. That is what the Magus encompasses. And we see our Magus, he's out. He is collecting what looks to be holly from an oak tree. Sometimes that does grow up right on side of them. He's got his basket. He's got all sorts of seasonal goodies. He's out and about. He's doing his work, but he's doing it thoughtfully, carefully. He's not making a big sideshow about it. And that could be very useful counsel for those of us who do practice magic about not making a big affair when we do a ritual or when we do a particular spell. It's not about trying to attract other people's attention for what we do. It's about the value and the meaning of the work that is actually performed. And yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. Anyways, moving on. The Celtic triad for today is three who it is wise not to believe. The stranger about their possessions, an old person praising the day that was of yore, and the one who boasts of their own wisdom. Tell you what, these don't really require much comment, do they? Because with a stranger, it's easier for someone who's unknown to a community to make all kinds of claims about themselves, confirming or finding official denials for anything that they say. That can be a lot more difficult. Now, in the day and age of the internet, that does make it somewhat easier, but still, confirmation is scarce. I mean, information abounds, but verification, that is an issue. Then with older people, they are comfortable with the kind of world that they already lived through, the kind of world they learn how to function in. It's familiar, it's comfortable. It isn't to say that it was automatically better than the present day, because each era has its has its benefits and its detriments, to be sure. So it's not about necessarily this isn't about disrespecting the elderly or anything that they have gleaned through the years, but it is about being aware that what they might be more inclined to approve of has more to do with what they were accustomed to when they were young, rather than anything that was objectively, measurably better in some fashion. And then about the wise, the truly wise people, they don't go around telling people that they think that they're just the greatest thing since sliced bread, or how everyone should listen to them. And they certainly don't try to use it as a means to get people to comply with their own wishes. For to begin with, that would be an exposure of the lack of wisdom rather than the presence of it. And people who are just trying to puff themselves up a bit too much in public, it's not uncommon that they're up to something, and that what they're up to, maybe it's not too nefarious, or maybe it could be very detrimental to your own interest. You don't know, but these all of these things mentioned in the verse, it represents people who we do well to be wary of. And that's one of the reasons why I continue to take my warts and all approach with this channel. I don't mind, the audience seeing, my word mistakes and me getting lost in thought and having to recollect myself. I don't mind you seeing any of all that because it's real and it's real life. And I think it's better sometimes to let the mistakes show, because not only when you do that, people know that you are at least making an effort to be honest with them. And for another, if you happen to do something particularly well, it's real. It's not because you did 50 takes on it. It's because you were actually excelling in that moment. And I think being learning to be unafraid, to be as you are, to allow your process of trying to get better in whatever it is you pursue, but allowing that process to be visible, that takes a kind of courage that social media does not make easy for anyone, but I think it is still worthwhile, and I think it's a useful step in us reclaiming our own humanity. But that's a tangent, so let's move along to our magical correspondences. Today they're on the theme of inspiration. For this, the color is white, the plant is angelica, the animal is butterfly, and the crystal is selenite. So, if you allow yourself the freedom to actually dream, inspiration does tend to follow, but you have to be willing to take in different kind of influences and different ideas that you're not sure how any of it fits together. But then you have a spark, and that spark brings a lot of things that have been floating around in your mind. It brings them together in a more cohesive fashion. But you're not going to be able to get that if you're too regimented or if you're too grounded and practical and realistic. You have to allow yourself a little wandering of the mind. Then today's hearthkeeping hint. It's about those season's greetings. I'll be sure to convey such to your acquaintances. I'm sure for those of you who keep up the tradition of sending out cards, that's something you've already taken care of. But if you're going to be on social media at all today, adding, something, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever your term you're really feeling comfortable using. Show that good wishes to those people that you know. It presents you and your household in a favorable light, and it raises the tone. It raises the tone for public discourse, where we all stop and we remember there's a lot of different holy days. going on at this time of year. People are wanting to be in a good mood. People are wanting to focus on something that rises above just kind of the day in, day out squabbles that, there'll be plenty of time for that in January. And I'm sure we will go back to it. But there is something very uplifting about taking a certain period of time and just saying, you know what, that's not what we're doing today. So that's just a little thought there. Then for our practices, of course, exchange gifts. You might do some divination. I do have a Yule spread for you. Today's archetype is the winter seer. What can you see in winter that you cannot see in any other time of year? And you can take that literally or figuratively as you so choose. For meditation prompt, are you beginning to feel ready to hibernate? Just from the way I'm talking, you can tell I'm winding down on my own energy. It's time for me to relax. It's time for me to have a slightly less regimented schedule over the next couple of weeks. Because I'm recording this, well ahead of time. Uh, I think you can see that I am ready to hibernate. How are you doing with all of that? And what are you going to use your period of hibernation for? So another thing that you might allow your mind to explore if you choose to make use of this prompt. And then if you have a labradorite crystal, you might choose to carry it or wear it today. So this brings us to our Yuletide spread, and we have the wreath. And the interesting thing about this is that if you are the type of person where you need more details, if you only have 3 or 4 cards, it's going to drive you crazy. You need as much as possible. I found something for you. So enjoy, my dears. The instructions say, the wreath spread is designed to follow the 12 months following the holiday. Set aside the alternate cards in your deck after shuffling. Lay out the cards in layers of 3. Start at the top right position. Place the piles clockwise like a clock. Each pile will be 1 month. Read each pile of 3 from left to right with emphasis on the first card. Take notes. This reading covers a year. You may want to reflect. And my goodness, yes, if you have this much information, I implore you, take notes and periodically refer to them as you go through 2025. That's too big of a spread and that's too much effort to go through for interpretation if it's not something you're going to be going back and forth to and seeing how it works out. So if you do this, I would encourage you to see it as an ongoing project of interpretation. Then in today's Creative Corner, beautify your table for today's festivities. And when I talk about beautify, I don't necessarily mean be formal. That may not be your style. That may not be what your family's comfortable with. You might have 3-year-olds that if they so much as look at the good dishes, they just shatter. Beautification is about creating something that is pleasant to look at, that is welcoming, inviting, and that you have the appropriate implements for the appropriate meal that you are actually serving. That is what beautification is. So whatever that is meaning for your household, I encourage you, go to the extra effort. Yes, it's a little bit more work to actually set the table and do all these things, but it's pretty. It's pretty, and it's just another one of those things we can do to make the day a little bit more special. Then for our journaling, this is a day for cozy family time. What does the future look like for you and yours? Because now that we've reached present day, it's not going to be too much longer before we start really honing in on what's to come in the calendar new year. It's right around that corner, and you're probably feeling that buildup of energy. So think about, what does that future hold? What do you want it to hold? So that is what I have for you today, everyone. Thank you for putting up for my little mistakes and for unexpected kitten interruptions. Have a magical day, everyone. Enjoy your presents. I wish you bright blessings and all of the joys of the season. I will have the next edition of the forecast for you tomorrow, and I will see you then. Bye for now.